Hello and welcome to the preview on Fulhamish, brought to you by My Kind of Cruise. My name's Elizabeth and later on we'll be talking to Dave from Talking Wolves. When I spoke to you guys before Arsenal, I said Fulham come into this one in a really tricky run of form, and so it's proved. If anything, it's only got worse. We've lost our last 4 in a row in the league and we're languishing just above the relegation zone. The table is not looking pretty right now. And yes, they were 4 very, very difficult fixtures. Villa away, Bournemouth away, Arsenal at home and Newcastle away. We weren't necessarily expecting to get things out of those individual games, but to come away from this whole run with 0 points is quite challenging and hard to take, especially considering like last season we got 4 points from those same fixtures. There is obviously the tonic of Fulham's midweek win against Wycombe in the Carabao Cup, but it's not necessarily a performance that will put our fans' minds at ease. It was a performance that was riddled with the same error at the back and impotence in front of goal that we've seen in recent weeks. Plus, to make such hard work of a job against a League One team is definitely concerning, even if we are through and excited to be facing Newcastle in a few weeks in the quarter-finals. And there have been concerns about our performances, both in terms of defence and attack, over these last few league matches. Defensively, there have been lapses, especially in Bournemouth and Aston Villa, where there were loads of quick-fire goals conceded very rapidly. But also in an attacking sense, we've looked generally quite impotent in front of goal and unable to create any proper chances. Famously, in the Arsenal game, we had 0 shots on target, and I know Arsenal are a very impressive defensive team, but I think more widely this is symptomatic of a bigger problem. In terms of squad news, it's not necessarily as bad as it was a few weeks ago, but there are definitely some concerns. We're yet to hear Marco's Friday press conference where he will confirm some of these absentees, or fingers crossed he won't. But Emile Smith-Rowe is absent with a hamstring injury. Anderson and Wilson are TBC for this game, as I believe is Samuel Chukwueze. And Anthony Robinson is still in this limbo long-term injury. We're not actually quite sure when he's coming back from that or what even is really the problem that is keeping him out at the moment. In terms of squad then, this is kind of what I think we'll be going for on Saturday. Cuenca and Diop I think will start in that centre-back position with Anderson maybe out, and Cuenca honestly undroppable at the moment. They're technically our second choice centre-back pairing, but I think they're so strong in this position. And then looking further up the pitch, I think for me the big concern area is right wing. With Wilson almost certainly out for this game, it will have to be Adama Traore, who's been a big figure of frustration for the fans. I'd be surprised not to see it, and personally I'm really excited and hope to see the return of Lukic and Berger playing together in the midfield. On paper, Fulham should always be winning this game. We're at home. Wolves are on paper the worst team in the league, and there's a huge amount of discontent around their manager. However, there's always that concern that we'll go and do something super Fulhamish and let them win. It's hard not to remember last year where Gary O'Neill's Wolves were on a terrible run, came to the Cottage and won 4-1. And I think that's my concern going into this weekend. I hope you enjoy my chat with Dave from Talking Wolves. That's coming up next. The preview on Fulhamish is brought to you by My Kind of Cruise, the world's first cruise booking app and website. Whether you're a seasoned voyager or you're embarking on a different kind of away day for the very first time, My Kind of Cruise has got you covered, with unbeatable prices and all the options under the sun that you can think of, from ice fishing like Rodrigo Muniz to tours around the Mediterranean and Caribbean. My Kind of Cruise is founded by a fellow Fulham fan, and Fulhamish listeners can get an exclusive discount at checkout with the code Fulhamish. Just head to mykindofcruise.com or download the app from the Google Play or Apple App Store. Thank you so much for joining me, Dave. I wanted to start by asking about Will's start to the season, if you can even really bear to speak about it. Rock bottom of the table, not a single win in the league. A pretty good run in some ways in the League Cup, but obviously knocked out last night against Chelsea. What has gone wrong for Wolves this season?
I wish I could pinpoint it to one thing, but it's just so much going on and off the field for Wolves. And I think the writing has been on the wall probably for some time now. If I look at it, I've been talking to, I was on Sky Sports News a couple of weeks ago, and they said, well, you lost your first 8 games, or you didn't win in your first 8 games last season, and you stayed up. And I thought, oh yeah, I suppose so. But then at the same time, that's an issue. If that's happening season after season, why is that happening? Because sometimes it's going to catch you up, and you're going to, unfortunately, you're going to get relegated. So it's just been an absolute mess. Us losing big players is going to be something that a lot of people will talk about. Cunha to Manchester United, Aït-Nouri to Man City, Semedo, who was our captain, left on a free. The replacements aren't anywhere near as good as those. Vitor Pereira really struggling to get any sort of momentum out of this squad. We won 6 on the bounce last season, and then the final 4 games I think we didn't win, and then that's just carried on to the rest of this campaign now. So just an absolute mess, and I think the fans, you may have seen after our game against Burnley, really frustrated, and I think it's just spilling over. There's just frustration, the way that the club has been looked after in terms of the ownership at the moment. It's in a poor state at the moment, and unfortunately that's sort of spilling over onto the pitch as well. So every week I seem to find a couple of positives, and I sort of take that into the next game thinking, is there a bit of hope? But I get let down. I mean, you mentioned the Chelsea game there, an absolutely awful start for Wolves, and we were 3-0 down at half time. We ended up losing the game 4-3 because the second half performance was fantastic. But can we take that second half performance to Craven Cottage on Saturday? I don't know, because if we take the first half performance in, we're going to lose another football match. So just so much going wrong at Wolves, and just really struggling to find any sort of quality and consistency this season so far, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your frustration with the owner, but I wanted to ask about the manager, because it seemed when he came in last season there was loads of goodwill from Wolves fans. There was famously he was in the pubs in Wolverhampton celebrating after games. Has that really changed this season? I mean, with the results, it would be hard for it not to, I guess.
Yeah, it has. It's safe to say he's probably teetotal now as well, because he hasn't been hanging out with us in the pubs for a little while. But yeah, I think that he showed a lot of frustration after the defeat against Burnley last week. I think ultimately when your voices sort of aren't being heard, but in terms of your lack of trust in the ownership, and when players are losing football matches, ultimately there's only one person you can turn to. I have some people say, well, why are we blaming the manager and not the players? And unfortunately in football you can't sack 11 to 22 players. There's only one person and his staff that you can sack, and that's the manager. So after the game on Sunday, I think there was real frustration, and even Wolves fans singing "You're getting sacked in the morning" to him, and he went up to the fans and he started pounding his chest, saying "I need fight, I need passion," which some fans didn't like, and he said it in his post match interview, and he goes, 6 months ago they loved me, and now because we're losing a few football matches, they want me out. So it's frustration, and I think he hasn't got long left. If I'm honest, the club, in my opinion, stupidly gave him a new 3-year contract about six to 8 weeks ago. But I think this game, if we lose on Saturday, I think it could be curtains for him. He might get the following game, which is against Chelsea or at Stamford Bridge the following weekend. I think this window between now and the international break is massive for him and his Wolves' future, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember this time last year, around this kind of time last year, where very similar noises were being made about Gary O'Neill, and there was the game where Wolves came to Fulham, and it was possibly one of the bleakest games I've attended as a Fulham fan, and, I've been to some absolute stinkers in my time. You mentioned quite a lot of outgoings over the summer, and I think that that feels really headline in terms of what we've seen. Cunha is the obvious one for me, a player that I absolutely love watching, less so now he's gone for Manchester United, but someone who I always was excited to see when Wolves were on telly and stuff. What players have you got that can hurt Fulham? What players are left? What players are being dangerous?
I still think we've got quality in this team. The obvious answer is going to be Jorgen Strand-Larsen, because he scored 14 Premier League goals last season. He started off really slowly this year, to be honest. He hasn't had the best of luck with injuries and fitness so far this season, but obviously he was heavily linked to Newcastle in the summer as well. So, a lot of Wolves fans concerned maybe that's turned his head slightly. But again, he was one of the players that sort of approached the fans yesterday, on Sunday, and, sort of tried to address the issue with the fans. So he's still an option. Another player that may well take part up front as well is Toluwa Rokodare, Nigerian international striker who we signed in the summer. Scored 2 goals, both in the League Cup so far this season. One of those last night against Chelsea. And there's possibly a chance we could see both of them start, which would be interesting because we've not seen that yet for Wolves. Other than that, we're really struggling. I always used to pinpoint our hopes on João Gomez and Andre, the 2 midfielders. But even those 2 have started off quite slowly so far this season. So we're desperate just for a little bit of spark or creativity because, like I said earlier on, there's no one showing enough quality on a consistent basis at the moment. Some players are having a great game one week. Some of them had a good game last night, but to say I'd be shocked on Saturday if they go in and repeat that performance because we've not seen that enough so far this season. But I'd say Jorgen Strand Larsen for me is probably the easy answer at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And whereabouts have you been weaker defensively? Which areas will Fulham be able to exploit on the pitch?
Defensively we've been awful. I mean, we started the season with a back 5. We switched to a back 4, which for a short while, improved our fortunes a little bit. We switched to a back 4 and beat Everton in the League Cup, and then got 2 draws back to back after that. And then after the last international break, it's sort of fallen apart again. I think that stunted our momentum a little bit, frustratingly. But yeah, we're struggling, in terms of like defending in general, crossfield balls, crosses into the area. Early part of the season, I couldn't believe it because we were playing a back 3. The 3 defenders all probably 6'2", 6'3" plus, and we were getting beaten every time aerially. We're conceding a lot of goals. That's improved a little bit now, but just our own errors. I think if Fulham press and make Wolves make the mistakes, and that's been the issue. I think the 4 goals we conceded to Chelsea last night, if you watch the highlights, from my point of view, I think Wolves could do better for every single one. And it's just our own errors and us being sloppy in possession, which is allowing teams these opportunities. So I think if Fulham stay solid defensively, they will have a chance to capitalise on a Wolves error. I can guarantee that now. So yeah, defensively, we've been all over the place. And I'm intrigued to see how he starts in terms of the defensive shape, because like I said, in the league, it's been a back 4. Yesterday against Chelsea, started a back 4 and it was a disaster, and he switched back to a back 5 and we seem to be a lot better, even going forward. So I will be interested to see how he starts at Craven Cottage on Saturday.
Yeah, I remember coming to Pereira's Wolves in February and we started a back 5 sort of match up, and that went really well for Fulham. We performed really well that day.
I do remember that game.
Yeah, it was a real breakthrough for me personally with Silva in the back 5, but I would be absolutely shocked if we went for a back 5 in this game. I think there would probably be uproar and outrage in the stands. Before we go, we're not doing score predictions on Fulhamish this season. Instead, we're doing 100-1 guesses. So the idea of this is basically giving a really outlandish prediction. If it happens, amazing, we clip it up for social, but if it doesn't, no harm done, nobody's expecting it. Do you have a 100-1 prediction for me?
Oh, you did prepare me for this, and I still haven't got one in my head, to be fair. I mean, it could be an outlandish prediction on Adama Traore to score, maybe, but let's say former Wolves boy, I mean, I don't want this to happen, obviously, but former Wolves boys, Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez, both get on the score sheet for Fulham. Yeah, I think that's what. But Wolves not to lose the game. So I'm backing like a 2-2 or 3-2 win. So Wolves not to lose, but Adama and Raul Jimenez still to get on the score sheet for Fulham.
Yeah, I mean, another 3-2 for Wolves, but maybe on the right side of it this time. Yeah. For me, I'm kind of echoing your idea of I think Traore and Raul are going to have a good game. Like, I think Traore may assist Raul, something like that. Yeah, but yeah. I'm hoping, and my 100-1 is that we reverse the fortunes of last season and Fulham end up winning it 4-1. So that's my fingers crossed. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching the preview. We'll be back on Saturday night with a quick take, hopefully celebrating a win and not 5 league losses in a row. But until then, come on, you Whites.